Not
recently.
officially. I'm really finding it hard to go
Yeah.
back to it. But after hearing what Google's doing with Chromium now, I'm kind of like, yeah, I can't.
Oh, I might be behind the times. What is the
Well,
what's
they tried that flock thing. You hear about that?
I did
Where
hear
it
about
was
that, but
like
explain it to me.
basically they were trying to group users of Chrome into like I don't know, like categories and then sell them ads that way instead of using cookies.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was called Flock. I forget exactly what the
Oh,
acronym
yes,
means.
yes. I remember. I think Leah
Yeah,
talked about that. Yeah.
right. But now they're doing a whole nother thing that they're gonna actually start to block ad blockers. Like you block Origin and all that stuff, they're gonna actually actively work against them so that they
Yeah.
can't work right. And that I can't deal with the internet without you block Origin. There's no way. It's just
I'm still using AdBlock Plus,
well
but
that works too. That works too. But uBlock is amazing. I love uBlock.
yeah, I know that I should be using uBlock. Most of my
That one
friends
does
use
work.
uBlock.
I actually used to use both of them because
Yeah.
uBlock wasn't that great a long while ago, and then that one kind of filled in the blanks. But ever since uBlock has been like basically the last, I'd say about 3 years, it's been great.
Okay. Like I was thinking, like, oh, you haven't like changed your Facebook like status yet. Like they need like relationship status for browsers. Like you
Yeah,
put
right.
like Josh is now using Fedora.
Josh is in a relationship with.
Yeah, Josh is now using Firefox, whatever number they're on these days.
Yeah, Firefox 100, 100,
Yeah,
man. They had a whole big thing about that. All right, we better get streaming. We're losing content here.
I got the stream going. I
Oh,
just
you do?
started it.
Where is it? It's not up. Wait.
Welcome to Crowbar Kernel Panic, the podcast at the intersection of Linux and gaming. This is episode 26. We are live streaming on YouTube over at Crowbar Kernel Panic. Please give us a like and a subscribe. We recently hit 100 subscribers, and we're gonna. Oh, we've been discussing behind the scenes the live stream. You actually
Yeah.
picked up some hardware so that we could
Yep.
live stream your Arch install.
I picked up. Oh, you can't even see it because it's got a. I don't even know what this thing is. Hold on. Let me pick this thing off of here.
That's his address. Whenever you order an HDMI USB connector, they put your address, social security number, and date of birth on the box.
No, you can't
so-
even see what it is. It's got like all this crap on it. Oh, this isn't gonna work. Oh wait, I can just unplug it. Hold on, it's right here.
Oh crap! He's gonna unplug it, and the stream's gonna go down.
No, we're good. We're good. I wasn't using it for anything. This little guy.
There you
Can
go.
you see it?
Yeah, I have the exact same one because
That's so funny.
I think it's the cheapest USB HDMI.
It is. It's like
connector on-
16 bucks.
Yeah.
It barely works. It's like
It's a
30 frames per second. Hi,
Yeah.
you're funny. 15. Here you go.
Yeah, I actually used it in the Arch install video that I posted of ours. I was
Right.
using that connector, and it's funny because you can see after I got Arch installed, I switched to using OBS to actually like do the screen capture, and there's like a dramatic quality change, like all of a sudden whenever I switch.
Oh, man.
But it'll make it through, especially for an Arch install where you're just trying to capture a terminal,
Yeah.
you know.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, I think we should do a full live stream of it. We got to figure out when we're going to do it. I'm about to go on vacation, so it'll be at least 2 weeks from now.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. I don't know.
And I think it's going to take like all day. I think it's going to be like we need to start like in the morning.
Yeah,
and,
because I like when to take my time, talk through even talk through some of the steps like a little more to understand it more thoroughly, you know.
Yeah.
And I want to also do my btrfs setup where I can like do snapshots with time shift and all that crap. So
Yeah. So
that's gonna be a little extra.
When I was telling you I wanted a project, I want to start a project for the show because I feel like I haven't really been working on anything. Like I come on and I'm like, oh yeah, I tested Fedora, but like I was already using Fedora. Like it wasn't really anything special.
Right. It wasn't like a
then,
side project.
Like whatever game I've played that week, I usually try to pick up a game every 2 weeks just so I can talk about it on here. But
Yeah.
Beyond that, I don't really have anything going on anymore. You know, like I was working at a day job where I did Linux every day, and so I could kind of talk about those projects a little bit, but I'm not even doing that anymore. So like I need like a project, like I need something that we need that's like an ongoing. And the idea that I came up with, although I think your Python conversation before this may have changed my mind, but the original idea I had was, so we're always trying different versions of distros.
Don't say try and BSD.
No, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. But I'm always having to like wipe my system and then reinstall everything. And I've got it down pretty good. Like I know exactly what I'm going to do every time. But you mentioned wanting to learn more about Ansible.
Yes, I know where you're going with this.
Yes, which is something that I feel really comfortable with, but there's probably better ways to do it. I think if we were to use Ansible, we would just be doing it because you want to learn more about it. But there's probably better ways. But I think we need to.
We could do a Python script for this.
Maybe, I don't know, but we need to.
I know we can because I've looked into it.
Oh, okay. I
not
think
installing Fedora, but after, or not, I shouldn't say Fedora, but not installing a distro, but after the distro is installed, you can like just launch that Python script, like do a git pull, launch that Python script, and everything happens.
So the good thing about using, all right, so the project idea I had was to automate that process after we install an OS.
Right, exactly.
So that we do the same thing every single time.
Yep.
And I know that every single time I install an OS, I install OBS, I install, the stuff needed to do the podcast. I install Caden Live, whatever we need to edit the show, Audacity. I'm going to install Elder Scrolls Online because that's typically my benchmark test for how gaming performance is. It would be nice to automatically install Gravity Mark or something like that to test the FPS. The nice thing about using something like Audacity versus a Python script, Audacity, Ansible versus a Python script, man, you'd have to get really creative with Audacity.
Great Audacity scripts to install our distros. Come on, man. It's all sound based.
Yeah.
All you hear is do 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 while the distro's installing.
Yeah. My dad used to have a watch that was like a computer watch that he would hold up to the screen and it would flash lights. It would be like that.
That's
but
great.
With audio. Audacity starts playing all these different audio things.
Yep.
So if we set up an Ansible script, the nice thing about that would be like, say for instance, you installed Fedora 36 for review of this episode.
Right.
I installed Nobara 36. Nobara already has OBS, and so Ansible is smart enough to say, well, OBS is already there, so I'm just going to move to the next step. Whereas if you set up a Python script, it's going to attempt to install it. Yeah. You'd
have to create logic in the Python script to be like, oh, OBS is installed, skip that. Yeah. Well, Ansible, isn't Ansible built on Python?
It is. Yeah, it
so
is. All the modules are Python.
Just look in the code and we can just copy and paste it for our Python script.
A lot of people even use it just feels weird to me just because I've just used Linux for so long, but I know that when I first started getting into Ansible, most of the people were not Linux experts. They just, they were using Linux because Ansible is a Red Hat thing. But they were pip installing Ansible. Like most people use pip to install Ansible even.
Right. Yeah.
But so that is an option, but I think we need to investigate what the best option would be. And
definitely.
Another thing is like, what could we do? This would be nice for us to have, but could we make something that other people could use? Like another idea I had,
like a community like kind of situation.
Well, so I think it would be weird. I think it would be weird if you had like a Ansible script that like it installed like a game and then all of the specifics. That would almost be like what Lutris does, like a Lutris script. But what if we could somehow make something that could like automatically back that stuff up and then redeploy it? We made something specific for games. Like it backs up. It knows that if you're a Linux gamer, you're going to have Lutris, you're going to have Steam. You may have that the Heroic launcher or whatever. What if we try to make something that like somehow like backed all of these things up? But anyway, I'm talking crazy. This is just like this is whiteboard brainstorming right here.
Again, we're also not a programming podcast.
Because most of that stuff is going to be, if you have anything that backs up like your home directory, like you were just talking about,
right.
Most of that stuff's going to be encompassed in that. So I don't really know what we could do special, but we need to investigate this.
We definitely do.
Figure out the best thing for us to use for doing these reinstalls for the show, and then talk about that more, as we do it. But yeah, I like the idea that you're trying to come up with a Python project. Have you had any ideas for that yet, or?
No, I really want to try to actually play some. I was actually playing that game you sent me a little bit ago, the AI Dungeon or whatever. Was that you, or was that someone else that sent that?
Oh yeah, I sent you AI Dungeon.
Yeah. Because I kind of want to get some ideas to figure out, what I could do, like how I could, program it, what the what am I trying to say? What the storyline might be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not only what the programming is, but what the storyline would be.
That's what you said that sparked my interest before we started the show, that I was like, oh, maybe that's a better project than the other. I would love to work on some sort of because
I feel like that's like the easiest
RPG.
Yeah, that's like the easiest thing that you could get into is a text-based one. Other than maybe like Godot or something like that, we could do that, but that's limiting, to that engine. But with the text-based game, you can do whatever the heck you want.
Did you check out the AI Dungeon thing?
A little bit. I played maybe 15 minutes, and that was about it because I was kind of making dinner and stuff. But it seemed pretty cool.
It's pretty wild.
I don't think I could make anything like that.
It's pretty wild. It's like using machine learning and AI, obviously.
Hey, Python does that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's Python based. It's
that's true. It probably is. It's probably running Python in the background.
Right. It's taking the input from all the other players that have tried it, and it's using that to better itself and to
interesting.
Yeah.
Slowly becoming Skynet, right? Skynet? Yeah.
Exactly. I actually did back when I was playing Star Trek Adventures, which is a Star Trek RPG. I actually basically used AI Dungeon to set up my scenario, and then I played through that scenario as a player, and I used what AI Dungeon fed to me to continue the story. To kind of use that with my real life players. I basically retold the story to them. But it's funny because it'll get off a little bit and say something weird, and so you have to kind of
all those AI things do that. No matter how good they try to make it, something's always off a little bit.
Yeah, no, that would be a lot of fun to work on some sort of project like that. But if you have an idea for what project we should work on to continue the show, as an ongoing thing for the show. You can send us an email at crowbarkernelpanic@pm.me or join us on Discord. I have the Discord link in the show notes. I have been trying to pay attention more to the Discord channel. So we hang out in the Linux Gaming channel on the Mintcast Discord. And I really appreciate everybody that's been giving us.
Yeah, there's been a lot more activity recently.
Yeah, it's been kind of hyped.
It's been pretty good.
I think we could be getting to the place where we might want to start our own. Maybe we make that the 200 subscriber goal. When we get to 200 subscribers, we make our own Discord instead of sharing the Mintcast.
That'd be good.
Although we love the Mintcast. There's no
no
one's trying to kick us out. We're just
no.
I think if we got to 200 subscribers, maybe we would be at a point where we feel like we could kind of stand on our own.
But we'd also be able to tell more how many listeners we might have. Not necessarily all of them, but get a more of a fine-grained tune on how many people are listening to us a little bit.
The people that listen to us now, I'm sure, just they migrated over from Mintcast. I'm pretty sure, but
probably for the most part.
But that's great. We love it.
Hey, that's fine with me.
So we got some comments. We got from Floppy Doof. Sorry, Floopy Doof. This was on the last video. He said, as someone else said, and I think that was joking because I was coughing on the last episode. I had the sinus problem. Congrats, Josh, on graduating.
Yay! Thank you.
Congratulations. Is it official now? I know last week you were like,
Yep,
I'm
it's
pretty sure it's
definitely
good.
it's 100% official. My
Okay.
my graduation is actually on the 26th of this month, so that's next
Nice.
week. So everything's all good.
Man, that is so are you going to walk across the stage and everything? You're going to get
Yeah,
to go
I'm
through the
going
whole
to. I
process?
wasn't going to, but my family
I'm
all
glad you
kind of
are.
convinced me into it because I didn't really get a graduation for high school because I went to a high school that was like really, really small. Like I'm talking
Yeah.
like maybe like 30 people in the entire school. And
Yeah.
I was one of 2 people in my graduating class. So it's like it was a really small school. It was small. So I didn't really get a graduation. So this might be like my like real
Yeah. Well,
graduation.
I'm glad that you are because I didn't do mine and I regret it. I
That's
regret
what a lot
it.
of people told me.
Yeah, I only regret it because my dad told me that he wished that and I didn't think about it at the time and he didn't express how important it was to him. But like after the fact, he told me that he wished that he had got to see me do it, and so I regretted not doing it.
Yeah.
But it didn't really mean anything to me, but if I had known, I would have done it.
Right.
But he got to see my younger sister, who is the way more responsible McCoy. So it makes sense that it would be her. So he went on to say, my gut tells me that the connection issues Bo is experiencing could be related to either MTU size being too large, UDP being filtered, or the fancy router trying to shape the traffic via some QoS policy. I think this was it. The ISP might also be up to something too, though. So I don't think it's my ISP because my fancy router, it's an Ubiquiti, but it's not the custom Ubiquiti kit. It's like you can buy a router in a box from Ubiquiti I think it's called Alien.
That's a fitting name for that router.
Yeah, it's very
That thing's
sci-fi
amazing looking.
But it actually, the interface is not as nice as if you just have an Ubiquiti, edge router.
Yeah, right.
It's
and
not,
just use their
it's
controller.
not as capable. But I'm thinking that there must be a more advanced interface that I just need to Google how to get to, because
Oh, right.
the basic interface that I could log into by going to the IP address of my router, it had some QoS policy settings, but there was no MTU size. I didn't see anything about UDP packets, and I did adjust the QoS policy because I'm upstairs on Wi-Fi. So it's Wi-Fi 6, and I have like a Wi-Fi access point that I plug my desktop into upstairs. And because it's Wi-Fi 6, then it's capable of as much speeds as I could do on my desktop anyway.
Right.
But also because it's Wi-Fi, some of the QoS stuff was set lower for Wi-Fi versus plugged directly into the router. And so I did adjust some of those settings, and I think it has helped. Although
you're really clear right now.
Yeah, and it comes and goes anyway. Like right now, everybody in the house is asleep, so like
Wi-Fi is definitely like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But and I'm not charging my car, and we were suspicious that had something to do with it. But also the car gets updates. It could be.
Oh no.
Update, yeah.
Oh no.
And it probably does that when it's charging. So that also could have been related.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Or it's
Yeah.
like phoning home or something. We're using all your bandwidth.
It's telling the government where I've been driving. Can't trust your phones or your cars these days. So we're so off track. I don't remember what I was saying before I started making jokes. So I changed those QoS settings. I think it did help.
Right.
But only time will tell. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how it goes.
So far, it looks good.
Yeah.
Because the last 2 podcasts you were having issues, and now it looks great.
I think. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. The router automatically does a speed test. This was one of the things I saw when I logged into the router to look at these settings. The router does a speed test at a certain time every day, and then it tracks that. So I could actually go back and look at a history of what I'm getting from my ISP, and I'm actually getting higher download speeds than what I'm paying for. Now, I don't know when it's doing that test. If it's doing that test at like, noon when everybody's at work, then it probably is getting much faster speeds than what I'm paying for. It would be ideally it should do that test like right about now, like when everybody's on their network, to see if I'm still getting
except for it would bog it down.
Yeah, except for I don't want it to do it right now.
Right.
But anyway, so we'll see if those QoS changes helps fix my problem. We had a comment on a way early episode. I don't remember what episode it was, but it was from Radu, who said that he was happy to see Albion on my Plank panel here. I had an Albion online icon, and he said, "I'm happy to see Albion, the Albion icon." And then I responded back, "Oh, fellow carrot farmer, I see." And I wasn't expecting a response. I just was, making a joke because I joke about how in that game all I do is farm. It's basically Farmville, but I have like epic gear on. And he said, "No, I'm more into wheat these days." So I'm farming carrots. He's farming wheat. That's
great.
That's really all you do in Albion is you build armor, swords, and shields. Maybe you're a
using
caster,
wheat,
but then
carrots.
But then all you do is go out and plant carrots. That's all anybody does in that game. I saw they have an update coming up. I don't know what changes they're making, but I think it's supposed to be more single player dungeons or something like that. So it could be interesting.
Player. Okay, good. I like that.
So that was all the comments we had. Oh, but we did have an email. Let me pull up that email you forwarded to me.
Yeah, I don't have it up right now, but
I'll get it up real quick. I should have done it. I forgot about it.
Yeah, I I didn't forget about it. I just don't know why I didn't pull it up.
JH and Steve, if you're still in the chat, hey guys, thank you for stopping by.
JH.
Oh, are you JH? JH could be anybody. It could be anybody with a J and H.
Exactly. Anonymity. Except for I'm signing to Google.
Okay, I got it right here. So this was from, you said Dale sent this to the
our email,
crowbarkernelpanic@pm.me.
Yep.
I really enjoy the podcast. Thank you, Dale. Even though I'm not an active gamer these days, I still try to keep up with the current news. Eventually, I will get back into some games. Yeah, man, definitely get into some games. I don't know if
I'm trying to get him into games.
Yeah, for sure. And I play a lot of stuff that doesn't require a full gaming setup and stuff. So we could probably find some old MMO.
I was trying to get him into Valheim.
Valheim was
going to be like
Yeah,
because then me and him could actually play, and I could teach him kind of how the ropes are.
I would play Valheim if I had other people to play with, and we had some kind of goal. Yeah,
I know. And I was playing with InitRD on
for
a while.
He's got the best.
I know it's amazing. I was playing with him for a while, and it was fun. And then I got busy, and then I couldn't play for a while, and then I logged on, and I mean, all of a sudden it went from I'm building wood stuff, yay, to I'm building iron stone stuff, and I can't even keep up, and I'm just I can't.
Yeah, our problem.
I'm over here in my little shack, trying to start a fire in there.
Our problem was InitRD was so much better than us that
he's amazing.
Yeah,
he is so good. I'll build a basic house, and I'll be there the next day, and he'll be making it so structurally sound and amazing looking from the outside. I mean, he's great.
It felt like I wasn't contributing anything, and I didn't know what the goal was, and I was just I'm just gonna rebuild. Every day I would just log in and just rebuild my house.
I didn't know what to do. Defaulted to carrot farming.
Yeah, if you could farm carrots in that game, I would be happy.
You can. There's a mechanic.
Continuing on Dale's email, Bo mentioned some issues with gaming on a TV. One option to try is the game mode, which is usually listed under the display options. Most TVs have a movie or cinema mode, sports mode, etc. The gaming mode should turn off the TV's video processing so that the incoming video goes directly to the screen without any delay.
Right. Especially important for VSync or G-Sync or FreeSync. Yeah. Very important to turn that off for that.
So I'm actually not. The issue was with streaming. Video, just from Amazon or anything like that. which actually does apply to Luna if I'm playing Luna games. Which, by the way, I've lost my Luna controller.
Oh, gee.
I'm telling you.
I promise I didn't take it.
Yeah, no, I left it. I left it in the garage, and I cleaned out the garage one day, and my son either picked it up and took it somewhere, or I accidentally might have threw it away, because I did throw a lot of stuff away, and it may have. And I took stuff to Goodwill. I may have accidentally took it to Goodwill.
Well, I would rather it go to Goodwill and maybe find a better home than be thrown out.
I've literally looked. We've looked everywhere, and we've even cleaned up his room. We cleaned up the area that he plays in. I literally, at this point, I'm like, I must have accidentally thrown it away.
I don't even have a kid, and I've lost so many things like that.
Yeah.
So I can't even blame it on the kid. I know it's me.
Well, that's what'll happen is we'll find it in the bottom of the fridge or something,
Yep, right. Oh yeah. I know what you're saying. Yep.
So I actually did some testing with that. So you told me to change the refresh rate on the TV, and
right.
I looked through the settings and I couldn't find where to do that, but
it's
my
probably
router,
obscure. It's probably not it's probably not refresh rate. It's probably like cinema mode, like Dale was talking about, those different modes, because my dad's TV is like that. There's no like refresh to 120 or 60. It's all like some weird wording.
Yeah. So I did change it. I did change it to something else while I was watching something, and I saw it happening. So I immediately changed it, and I think it did kind of resolve it in that moment. But
yeah.
I suspect it's a network issue, and it still could be. It could be that changing the refresh rate disguises the network issue. But it did go away in that moment.
Yeah, I would suspect the internet or the network issue only because you've been having networking issues.
Yeah.
That would be my first suspect.
I
right
think
there.
This was after I made the changes that the previous commenter suggested to my router. And I still had still had the issue. Yeah, I still had the issue, but I haven't seen it since I changed the cinema mode. So in a previous episode, one of you mentioned the turbo button on the computer in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, the turbo button was used oddly enough to slow down the computer. Yeah, that's what I read. As I understand it, games of that era were tied to the clock cycle of the CPU. When the newer CPUs were released requiring multiples of the clock cycle to be set, older games would be unplayable or too fast. So the turbo button would change the clock cycle. I remember having to do that in order to play older games back then. Yeah, that was I read about that. That's pretty...
And when he says too fast, he means literally like the game would be like
Right,
it would be like when it's supposed to be like da 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 da. Yeah, I don't miss those days at all.
So it seems like the turbo button was backwards. If the turbo button was on, it was slower. The turbo button was off, it was faster.
It was more of like a sync button.
Yeah,
like
sync
to
button,
sync the game to the rather than but it's turbo because it's making the game work better.
Yeah, it should have been called the choke, like the choke of a. It should have been like the choke of a carburetor,
Call the IT department. I put the choke on my computer. I don't know why, but it's making some weird sounds now. Sir, that's a car? Oh.
But Dell says, keep up the great work. We really appreciate the email. Thank you very much. Yeah, and if anybody wants to email, we'll be glad to read it on the show, and we really appreciate all the comments. Yeah, I read an article about that, the turbo button. I don't remember if I read it because we talked about it on the show, or if that was what prompted us to talk about it. I don't know, but I do remember old computers used to have that turbo button, and it's just it's just hilarious. Well,
mine don't work now because I'm only on Fedora. So.
Because the gimmick behind, because what always got me, even back then, was I would see the turbo button and I would just think that must not work. Or you would just have it on all the time. Like if there was a turbo mode, that would be the mode.
Yeah, why use anything else?
Right, yeah. Why would you ever use anything else?
I'm sure a lot of people thought that, and they probably just pressed it immediately.
They just left it on all the time. It's a really poorly named device. So we've got some news. We're going to talk about Fedora 36. Every episode of the show is not going to be Fedora. We just had 2 in a row.
Yeah.
And the funny thing I was saying about last week's episode is we titled it Fedora 36, but we mostly talked about 35. But this week we're actually going to talk about Fedora 36 a little bit. I did the Nobara project 36. It's the Fedora 36 ISO for the Nobara project. So I'll be talking about that. We have only 3 news stories coming up, but before we get into that, I wanted to tell you about a game that I've been playing, and I wanted to ask you if you're familiar with this game. Have you ever tried the Stanley Parable or seen any videos of it?
I have seen videos. I've seen it in my list, but I've never got around to buying it. Just kind of like Portal. I never played Portal, so like I need to do that too. My friend bought me Portal, so I need to start playing that. But anyway, besides the fact, no, I have not played the Stanley Parable.
So, the Stanley Parable, it is by Crows, is the the developer and publisher of the game, which is a fantastic name. They just came out with the Ultimate Deluxe, but the original game came out in 2013. And
wow, that long ago now?
Yeah, it was a source engine game, and it was like,
I do remember that.
There was all sorts of creative source engine games that was coming out from these indie developers. That's where Gary's Mod came from.
Yep.
And this was kind of in that same vein, only if you ever watch a video of it, you'll see like what the game is it's a game that you repeatedly play. It's a really short game, but there's so many different cases where like you could take a left where you took a right, and then you can end up with a different ending. Every time you do it, you'll end up with a different ending. And so the game is like meant to just be replayed over and over and over again. The premise of the game is you're Stanley, which is just like this dude that is in an office. He's in a cubicle. I can't remember what number his cube is. It's like 247 or something like that. I'm sure there's some Stanley stands out there that are like, come on, man, it's 225 or whatever. But he basically just has his employee number, and that's how he's like identified at this. It's just like your like very, very stereotypical, like, I push buttons every day job.
Corporate.
And, yeah, really corporate. and that's how the game starts. Essentially, they say that Stanley's job, his existence in life actually, is that there's on this screen, it pops up and it tells him what button to hit and for how long, and then he just hits that button on the keyboard and
oh my gosh,
and keeps moving. Well, one day Stanley looks around and realizes that none of his coworkers are in the office anymore. And so the game starts out with a narrator that just says, Stanley notices that none of his coworkers are around. Maybe they're all in the conference room. And so you start walking around the office, and the narrator will.
So
keep
now you're
talking to
playing
you.
now.
Yeah, now you're playing.
Okay, now you're playing. Got it.
And the narrator talks to you much like the movie Stranger Than Fiction, where you as the character can hear the narrator, and the narrator's kind of describe, like, you have this back and forth kind of with him, and so he'll tell you things like their first choice is you come to a room with 2 doors, and the narrator says, Stanley came to a room with 2 doors. The obvious choice was to take the door to the left. And then you can either take the door to the left or door to the right. And there's all kinds of decisions like that. Like Stanley went up the stairs to his boss's office, but you can go downstairs. Like you can either do what the narrator says, or you can defy against what the narrator says.
Stanley is hearing the narrator. Like, yeah. Somehow he's actually hearing the narrator, and you're like controlling him,
right?
So he can avoid what the narrator's actually telling him to do. That's awesome.
And it goes to just all these more and more extreme, like elaborate, like situations where like there was one time I entered the room with 2 doors. I took the right, even though the narrator said to take the left. And then there were some other decisions where I made a different decision than the narrator. Some of them I did the same thing the narrator said to do. I ended up going through like a labyrinth of hallways and all this different stuff, and I ended up back in the same room with the 2 doors again. Only this time there was like 19 doors.
Oh god! Oh my gosh!
And
that's like crazy.
There's one time I ended up in I ended up in like a literal labyrinth maze where like it was
Wow.
endless. I could never get out of it. I just kept walking and walking, and until it got to the point where I could like they kept changing it as I would walk through it to the point where I was literally just walking around a square, like a
Oh
square
my goodness.
hallway. Yeah, it's really crazy. I had one ending where I ended up in like a I guess Stanley died and ended up in heaven, but heaven was like it looked like a fancy art exhibit that was all like different pieces of the Stanley Parable game, and like I had all
Oh
these
my
different,
goodness.
like it was like white walled rooms where I
Right.
could
Yeah, yeah,
walk
yeah.
in, and then there's just like Stanley stapler on the wall with like a little description underneath it, so it's like it's just it's just all these like wild elaborate like different
Yeah.
choices and alternate endings that you can go through and do.
That's
um
that's so funny because like that's right around the era when they started doing all those quick time actions or something like that in video
yeah.
games, like a lot of stuff like that where you had to like, oh yeah,
Oh
10
yeah,
seconds to
yeah.
get this done. But like that game's like an anti quick decision thing
Yeah.
because like you have unlimited time and you can like defy the narrator and you don't immediately like lose the game. That's amazing.
Yeah, and because it's based on the source engine, there's a Linux native install. You don't have to run it on
That's
Proton.
cool. That's cool.
I tried it on the Steam Deck, and it works perfectly as you would expect
Yep.
because, like I said, it's a source engine game, so you'd expect it. I saw I didn't notice this until I was preparing for the show, but I clicked on crows on the Steam store page just to
Right.
see what other games they have,
Yep.
and they have this game I'm interested in. It's free to play, so I'll download it and play it,
Interesting.
and we can talk about it next week. But it's called Dr. Langskoff the Tiger and the Terribly Cursed Emerald, a whirlwind
Wow.
heist. And
That's crazy.
I'll read you the description. It says a 15-minute heist game by Crows and directed by William Poog. I don't know how you say his last name, but in parentheses it says a Stanley Parable. Slip into the soft-soled shoes of the mastermind responsible for the greatest heist. Oh God, I can't do this anymore. I'm joining the strike. Good luck writing the Steam description. Then signed Tina. And if you look at this at the Steam description, it's a letter from Tina, and it talks about the game a little bit at the top, but then it says, "Oh God, I can't do this anymore. I'm joining the strike. I didn't want to. I honestly didn't want to, but it's gone too far. I'm supposed to be writing the Steam store description, and that's it. That's my job. But because of understaffing, I've been told I need to work in the lighting department too, and it's only a matter of time before they reassign me to the wildlife preparation. And everybody knows that working in wildlife preparation is mostly about trying very hard not to be eaten by the tiger." So that's it. I'm joining the picket. And whenever you watch the little the little video describing the game, it's like there's like letters and stuff from employees. They're like going on strike. So
That's crazy.
I think without playing it yet, I think the premise of this game is going to be that sure you're playing this game about a heist, but you're also getting these clues of like the people developing the game are going on strike and quitting. So you're like dealing with that as part of the story as well. So it looks like a lot of fun. I really like these kind of games, and that one's free. So, yeah, I can't wait to try it. It's funny. Have you played anything in the last 2 weeks, or you've just been doing the Fedora Shuffle?
Oh yeah, I've been doing the Fedora Shuffle definitely. I haven't I haven't gotten a lot of games played yet, but oddly enough, I actually have been retro gaming on my HP stream because it's very low powered. So I was
Oh
kind of
yeah,
playing.
I remember those.
It actually kind of struggles to play like DS games,
Mm.
emulating them. So like it's not very powerful at all. And I can emulate them pretty well for up to like a DS or maybe like a Nintendo 64, maybe depending on how good the game's optimized. But
Yeah,
yeah.
there's I saw that they were making progress. I started to put it in the show notes, but I didn't actually read the article. I saw that they were making some progress on that PlayStation 2 emulator that they were working on.
Oh yeah, PSSOP. I don't know, something like
Yeah,
that.
whatever it
I know.
was.
I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about. Yeah.
Or was
Oh,
it?
I bet my laptop would be able to do that easily, or my desktop, but that not
Yeah.
that computer.
Um, but we do have a few. We do have a few news items. We'll try to go through.
Yeah, let's go through them pretty quick.
So we have the Gnome Foundation has done some reorganizing. They've done some.
They always seem to be doing reorganizing.
Well, this is so they changed out board of directors. I don't know anything about the old guy or the new guy, so I don't really have any comment on that. And in this, so I'm looking at thisweek.gnome.org, and in this announcement, they don't really describe much other than they made this transition. And they put up a Gnome Foundation's board of directors has been working on a high-level roadmap to give the foundation a clear direction, and they point out this roadmap in sort of like 3 pillars. The first one is they want to make newcomers, the newcomer initiative, more sustainable, with paid contributors polishing the documentation and welcoming people on our platform. The second pillar, make Gnome an appealing platform to developers by making FlatHub support payments.
Ooh, okay.
And then the third is make Gnome a local-first platform to empower individuals by reducing their dependency on the cloud and, more generally, the internet.
I'm not sure what that exactly means.
Yeah, the third one is the one that confuses me the most. So,
make a local first platform.
Yeah, because to me, the first two are talking about attracting new developers.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if they mean like they're not going to be using collaborative things like Git, and they're going to be working more locally. I don't really know what this one exactly means, but
I don't know.
They say, in short, funnel more people to contribute to the Gnome project, make them able to earn money from the skills they developed, and follow them to create apps that have a strong impact on the world.
Yeah, I think that sounds really good. I mean, I know these open source developers need to get paid more for what they do because they do a lot.
Right. Yeah. That as a mission statement, seems really good. And I like the idea that they're like, okay, we're gonna actually staff some people that are gonna be just there for initiating newcomers, like people that want to develop for the project. We're going to make sure they feel welcome, and we're going to put the onus on those people to make sure that their documentation and stuff is in the way that we want it. Right. And instead of doing it the opposites, where people try to contribute and then they get a slap on the wrist for poor documentation or something. They're like, hey, we'll let them contribute and we'll try to help them with that part. And then the second one, so make Gnome an appealing platform to develop for by making FlatHub support payments. Yeah, exactly what you said.
I think that's an amazing initiative, the FlatHub support payments. I'm all for that because flatpaks are amazing. I think that they should be the clear winner for this whole, container-based application thing. And if people can get paid to do it, hey, more on you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good contribution. Let's see. The other stuff, they talk about some updates to GTK4. That's pretty in the weeds for this podcast, but it all sounds really cool. So if you are a GTK4,
sounds like a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, they have
nothing too negative or negative at all.
No, nothing at all. They mentioned some third-party projects. This one's really cool. So they have the first version of Warp, which is like a file transfer.
Oh, but they kind of copied Warpinator from Linux Mint.
Yeah, it's like where you can copy a pre-shared key or something, and then you can sync files back and forth.
Yeah, it's literally like Warpinator.
yeah, like Warpinator, and there's a few other things that do that same that same thing. And then they show Workbench. I'm kind of interested in
Oh,
this.
interesting.
So this is a development. It is a development sandbox specifically for like GTK and like Gnome applications, and it uses Blueprint, which is
cool.
a markup language by James Westman, which I've never heard of Blueprint, but that's it.
No, me neither.
It's pretty interesting. I watched this little video here, which is just, it's actually silent so we can play it, but it's just a little demonstration of how to use Blueprint in this new application. But yeah, that's some pretty good developments. I think we've been talking recently about how Gnome has won us over compared to where, like, I used to hate it, and now I find it very usable.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep.
So I think this is good stuff to see from them. Moving on to a little more salacious.
Yeah. Oh man.
So as reported by PC Gamer, this article I have linked in the show notes is from them. Nvidia's moved most of the code to firmware before releasing open source Linux drivers.
Yeah. I know. I've been hearing this all over the place.
Oh, really? Okay. So I just read this. I haven't listened to any like Linux podcasts or anything lately.
Well,
so.
I didn't hear that they moved the code to the firmware. I know that they've already had the code in the firmware. I think maybe I'm wrong.
That was my understanding. I was going to bring that up too. That was my understanding of it also. I read this article, and in the headline they make it sound that way, but I don't know that that's really the way the actual wording of the article.
Well, this is from PC Gamer, so they could not understand the whole open source thing. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that, but
I know a lot of times in these types of articles, especially for like a bigger magazine, someone else will write the headline, someone will write the article, and then someone else will write the headline.
So that could be they just got a few things inside the actual document, and then it was like, oh, I'll put these all in the headline.
Because what they'll do is they'll try out different headlines, which ones they think they'll like. They've got somebody that it's like their job to just figure out, well, what headline gets the most clicks,
Oh, okay. Right.
I think that was a similar thing that happened a while back. There was an article about Linux Mint, and it was like the headline was like really negative. But then when you read the article, it was like, I kind of get what this guy's saying. I think it was kind of a similar situation where it was like, the headline was written by somebody else. But if you read this article, it doesn't talk about the roadmap anywhere. And when we originally talked about Nvidia, like they had announced this whole like roadmap that they were developing and that they were going to be moving in phases. And I just think that I'm hopeful that this is just the first phase. I mean, do we really believe that like they're open sourcing the kernel portion of their driver is like they made that big announcement? That's the only thing they were planning to do, which is. That wasn't my perception of it before reading this article,
Yeah, I mean, it is Nvidia, so you got to take everything they say with a grain of salt. But they really, I think they really are gonna do this. It's just they're definitely gonna make sure that this is not like totally open source where anyone can just take their stuff and go with it. And they really did make sure of that when they the firmware actually has most of how the GPU works and all that stuff, and that's still proprietary. And basically what the open source part is doing is it's basically calling into the firmware and accessing the data from the firmware to interface it with the PC, basically.
It's sort of the hooks to the firmware. Yeah.
Hooks. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. Yeah.
So
that's basically what's happening. So it's really not open sourcing the driver, but it's a lot better than what we've had in the past. So I'll take anything they give.
So I think I'm of two minds with this. One, I'll say the hopeful one first. Should I go Doom or Hope first? Which one? Doom or Hope?
Doom first, because people will be left on Hope.
Okay, we'll do Doom first. So Doom first is I think that this illustrates why we maybe shouldn't have been so excited last week.
Right?
Like we should have probably have been more cautious with the
Last week was my
understanding.
initial reaction.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We probably should have been less optimistic. Of course they're going to have things in firmware. They've got that as an option to cover things
Yep.
up, and they're doing it to protect their,
Yep.
all the
But
intellectual property, yada yada yada.
yep.
But it's I don't think this is the end. Like I think that they
No.
will. I think that they will develop. This is the hopeful side now. I
Right.
think that they will continue down the roadmap, and we'll be able to see
Yep.
more and more benefit. This is just what they did to start. And
Yeah, and AMD and Intel both have proprietary firmware
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
the same thing that they're doing. It's just it's going to be easier for, let's say, the Nove project, or however you say that, to interface with a GPU, an Nvidia GPU. It's just going to make their lives a lot easier than having to act like not backport, reverse engineer the the full driver to try to actually get it to even work, not just to play games even.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not I think that I don't know how to describe it. To me, it's like
It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, to me, it's like somewhere in the middle. Like I think last week we were all like, "Bam, Nvidia, baby! I'm ordering a T-shirt," and then this week I'm like, step back. It wasn't. Maybe it wasn't.
Yeah,
we should.
right.
They're still a corporation, and they
Yep.
still are.
Especially
and they're
after
still.
talking.
And it's not without reason. Like they're
Right.
they're protecting something that they feel like gives them a competitive edge.
Right. Exactly.
So I mean, I get it. I just think that maybe we were naive in like the overhype. And I don't mean we as in you and me. There was a lot of hype around this.
There was a lot. And as the week went on and I listened to more Linux podcasts, I definitely noticed the hype was just like peak and then right down, just like just like slap on the wrist. You idiots! How could you have thought of this?
Yeah, me personally, I had decided I was going to buy a Radeon graphics card, and then this news came out, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm team green, baby. I'm not buying a Radeon card. I'll wait another year." And then after reading this article, I was like, "Nah, I should just buy whatever the best financially beneficial graphics card for me,
right?
and not be a
AMD
fanboy."
Is good now. It's not like Nvidia has like a huge giant lead on AMD, so it's not that big of a deal anymore.
Yeah. You're probably going to be interested in this one.
Yeah, this is interesting.
What I think is funny is that they announced this on Reddit. So Josh Strobel announces in a Reddit post that they have now submitted the Budgie desktop to the Fedora repositories. It's going to be available in 37, and let's see, they're backporting to 36 according to this, but I just thought that was pretty neat. They also describe like kind of the type of support that it basically is going to come out with a working Budgie desktop with very minimal anything else,
Yeah. So this is interesting to me because I actually used Solus and Solus Budgie specifically for at least a year between when I was getting off of Mint officially and doing my distro hopping. After a little while, I got stuck on that, and I was like, man, this is really good because my games were working. And back then, the games weren't. It wasn't as easy to get them working. So that did a lot of the extra stuff for you. And I was like, man, this is really nice. I really like this. And then I started to get off of it, and I kind of went here and there and yada yada. But then Josh left. And it was like, oh, so what's going to happen to the Budgie desktop now?
Right,
we were like, all kind of concerned about that. And now he's like, he's on our page. He's like, yeah, I'm going to Fedora, baby. Forget this Solus crap. No, Solus is still good. There's nothing wrong with Solus.
Yeah,
but Fedora is definitely coming around to being the top distro.
Yeah, it's
for
crazy.
Almost everybody now. It's just crazy. Yeah.
I need to try Budgie. I've actually never tried it.
Budgie's really, really nice. It's like a very it's not a stripped down Gnome. It's actually Gnome with with extra stuff, but it seems very simple. It's weird. It's like it's got extra things that Gnome doesn't have, but it seems more simple even than Gnome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's simpler just from the screenshots I've seen of it. It's simpler in
More
sort of like
traditional.
it's more traditional. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
in the layout in the
Right.
dynamic of how the menu works and that sort of thing. It's much
Yep.
more traditional. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. Which is like my least favorite part of GNOME, honestly. So I might would enjoy it.
You probably would like Budgie. I mean, Budgie is great. I really did like Budgie when I was using it.
It looks similar to Cinnamon, and I mean I use Cinnamon
Yeah. It's
forever.
Cinnamon with less options. Because Cinnamon, it's like, so you got KDE with like 1,000
Yeah.
options. You
Yeah.
have Cinnamon with like 500 options. Then you have Budgie with like 250 options, and then you got Gnome with no option. No, I'm just kidding.
With 10 options.
10 options. But that's like kind of how it goes on my scale of KDE
Yeah.
to Gnome.
Yeah. I'm glad to see that they're gonna have an official release for Fedora.
Yeah, me too. It's
And
gonna be awesome. And they're gonna do a silver blue based one. I see here. I did not
cool.
know that until I read this, which is kind of nice because I'm actually using silver blue on my HP stream.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll definitely have to give it a shot whenever it comes out. Maybe that'll be my first Budgie experience. Will be that. So that gets us through the news and into the Fedora 36 topic. So, who wants to go first, or how do you want to approach this subject?
Oh well, well, sometimes sometimes I write more than you have more, but I write more, and it looks like I have more, but it's not really true.
I mean, I have not. I've had a pretty busy week, and I haven't actually done as much testing as I would like. But I can also tell that it would have been. It's essentially I'm having the
I didn't
same
do a lot of
experience.
testing.
Yeah.
Either. I just did a lot of trying to figure out what the frig was going on with my computer.
And that's the difference thing between you and I is I always just do a basic install. My philosophy on my installations is I do as little as possible because I know I'm going to overwrite it. Like I change distros so often that like I just keep it minimal. I do.
Hence why we need the Ansible script.
Right. This is why we need.
So we
this
can
is
do
why
more.
We need it. So I do, ext4. I just do the basic install. I don't separate my home partition. I don't do, and then once it's got the desktop, I can get the things that I need to run the show and to do gaming. That's basically all I use my desktop for. I don't do any work related stuff on here.
Right.
And all my hobbies involve like streaming in some way. So basically, if I have OBS installed and a few games,
everything.
I have everything. Yeah. And so, but you always have a much more elaborate setup. You're trying btrfs, and you're trying all these different things.
The nice thing about Fedora is it does give you btrfs by default. So,
yeah.
But it doesn't do it in the same way that Ubuntu does it. So I have to change it a little bit to get my exact way I like to use it.
Yeah.
To get it to work.
Yeah, so I think we do. We need to work on a project to automate.
Definitely, that would be so nice.
Um,
But anyway, yeah. So you want to go first, so then we can get.
In the last episode, I said I was going to try to update. I was going to try to do the upgrade of Nobara.
Right.
And I did. I tried it, and it failed.
Right.
Did not work. So yeah, so
they must have changed just enough things that it was just not quite ready to be able to update like that, in place.
You know what's funny is I'm gonna pull up their website right now because they actually did have like an upgrade path article.
Oh, okay.
And it did work what they said. I just still had problems afterwards that were just not worth trying to fix.
Okay, I gotcha. Oh yeah, I know that struggle.
Yeah, it was just like I could just reinstall. Like, why am I trying to fix this? So they have a section on the Nobara project website, upgrade troubleshooting, and there's this libxslt devel conflict, and they give like a description here of like how you can change DNF remove that particular devel. And then it'll allow you to run the update and reboot. this did work. When I first tried to do it without finding this article, I received this error message. If you're watching the video, I have it on the screen, but it's a transaction test error, and then it has a file path that is like a bad path. And so if you just remove it and then follow the upgrade process, it'll work. And like I said, that did go through. And just like the very first installation, it popped up afterwards and asked me if I wanted to install the NVIDIA kernel.
Right.
And whenever I would try to install the NVIDIA kernel, it would fail. And I had
NVIDIA driver, you mean?
Well, yeah. Well, you know how whenever you install NVIDIA drivers, it installs like a custom kernel.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Right.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, it does. Right.
And so
You're right.
when it would try to do that, it would fail. And I looked it up like
That's
without.
what I was having with the beta. With the beta of 36, I was having that issue because it would be a totally different kernel than what's normally on Fedora, and it would fail every single time. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe they're using that same kernel or close to it.
I mean, that's what was happening. It was failing to load that. So it would install it, but then it would fail to load it.
Yep, that's exactly. That's
and
it.
So I followed a few like step-by-steps on how to fix it, and I didn't get any progress. And after trying that one or two times, I was just like, again, based on the philosophy I just described earlier, there's not enough customization to this desktop to make it worth keeping it. I'll just wipe it out and reinstall. So that's what I ended up doing. And the Nobara Project 36, I used their ISO from their website, and it worked perfectly. Just like whenever I installed the 35, it popped up, asked me did I want to install Nvidia. It installed perfectly. Everything's working fine ever since I did that. I also took your advice, and instead of using the Discord from the DNF repository, I installed the Flatpak Discord. And I've noticed that it is not crashing. So
maybe that's also why your stream is better.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. That could be.
That could be it.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But yeah, it could be. Because I think whenever we used to stream on Linux Mint, I always did the Flatpak.
Yeah.
And then I did DNF for some reason. And I was about to say I don't know why, but as I was about to say that, I realized why. On Fedora, I try to always use DNF, and I think it's because I'm used to using Red Hat, and so my brain switches to like work mode, and I try to do it the way I would do something on a server versus my desktop, which I have all these fancy things like flats and snaps and app images.
But
yeah.
That's understandable, though.
I think this is a boring review because essentially my Fedora 36 experience so far has been the same as my Fedora 35. I've not really ran into any weird trouble or anything like that. Although I just before the show I did DNF update, and I have a ton of updates to install. So I don't know if I forgot to do updates or if I just I don't know, but I don't know
how they do their updates. Maybe they have a lot of extra updates because they install a lot of extra packages.
Yeah, I don't know, but I didn't do them before we did the show because I didn't want to mess anything up. But
yeah. I get that.
I might install all those updates and then be like, I regret saying 36 works so well because now it's ruined.
No, I don't feel like that because as much as I've used Fedora, whenever I update it, not upgrade but update it, it's fine. I never have an issue with updating. I mean, no matter how many packages I get updated, unless I'm on a beta or something. That's another story. I did have an issue with a beta once.
I get scared every time I update Pipewire. That's what scares me.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the one thing you need.
I know, and it haunts
me. And it's
me.
always being updated. It's always like I did maybe I do about one update a day. I always try to check it once a day.
Yeah.
And every single time there was anything, there was a Pipewire update every single time. So, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah. Now, luckily, it has been good this time around. I remember when we did Fedora 24 or whatever it was, Fedora 30, I think. Pipewire was just...
Oh, that was in the early days, though.
That was when they first did it. I think that was the first release with it.
Even 34 was a little sketchy with that.
Yeah, but then... but now it's... now it seems to be working pretty good. Was it 30 or was it 34?
I think I'm not sure if it's 32 or 34 that had Pipewire unofficially.
Yeah. But so how's your experience been so far?
Mine, well, at first I was on the verge of just giving up. I really was. It was
Wow.
it was
Yeah.
bad. It was bad. I installed Fedora at least 5 times, and I finally figured out several things that I was doing wrong.
Yeah.
So, well, number one, right now I only have Fedora on on my laptop. I got rid of Windows. I do have it backed up, so I do have it out if I really need it.
Yeah.
But right now, Fedora is the only thing that's on this laptop. And so I didn't write this in the show notes, but yeah, I installed it like 5 times.
Hmm.
Just trying to figure out what the heck was going on with different things and all this crap. And I finally figured out that I was using Ventoy to install it initially. And I
What
was
kind of
like,
what kind of problem were you running into? Like,
just like I'm trying to remember because I didn't write any of it down. It was just little stupid things. Like I wouldn't be able to click on applications and they wouldn't open and
hmm.
stuff like that, and it just little random stuff.
And
And
you felt like it was something that you set during the installation process, and you were trying to go
I don't.
back and
Yeah, right.
yeah.
And this is I should have done what I did in the end from the beginning, but I didn't. But anyway, so I'm like, you know what? Fedora has an ISO writer, like their Fedora, image writer. I'm gonna
Right.
try it. So I grabbed another USB because I didn't want to format my Ventoy one, and I used it to install Fedora 36 and or write it to the USB and everything, and then I installed it. And that was like the fifth time, the last time I did it, and that worked perfectly.
Hmm.
Everything was perfect. I didn't have any issues. So don't ask me. I haven't
Hmm.
updated my Ventoy stick in a while, so that could be another problem.
Did
But
you did you download a new ISO to do
no,
that?
I used the same one. I actually
Wow.
copied it from Ventoy
That's
just because I
weird.
wanted to see if it was the issue,
Yeah,
but it
that's
wasn't.
bizarre. That is bizarre. I wonder what the difference could be.
So I have no idea what it was. It could be because Ventoy wasn't updated, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what the heck happened, but it definitely was smoother. My fans were working. Everything was seemed to be okay with it
What
when
if
I'd
it
used that.
had something to do with secure boot or UEFI or something?
No, because I have all that off.
Ah,
Well, UEFI I have on, but
right.
everything else is off. I have secure
Huh.
boot off. Yeah, I turn off all that just at least for the initial install to make sure everything works. So, but then since I wiped Windows, what I did was is I installed Fedora on my SSD in my laptop, and I have 2 NVMEs in there also. And I basically used btrfs to make a RAID 0 between those 2 NVMEs to make one, I think it's 1.5, let's see here. Yeah, 1.39 terabytes
Hmm.
um, of storage. So when I did that, none of my games would install. It would get to, well, not none of them, but the ones that had Origin will get to that Origin part and it would just crash. I'm like, oh man, what the heck is this now? Every time it would just crash. Every game that had Origin would do that.
Hmm.
Then I realized I was looking through through the permissions, and it was like I don't even remember what it was, but it was set wrong. It was definitely set not not to what it should be. So what I did was I set the permissions to I did a chmod 770 so that
Mm-hmm.
my user and my group would have full permissions, but I didn't. I set the everyone to nothing, so just in case, security
Yeah.
stuff. But and that worked. I every game installed perfectly. Nothing, you know, nothing failed, and they all run great.
Yeah.
Um, Another issue I was having too, I don't know, this is probably a little bit out of the scope of this podcast, but just out of necessity to say it. I was trying to mount the btrfs partition or subvolume, and I was using um oh man, what is it called? Well, it's a caching feature of btrfs. I can't remember what it's called, but if you don't specify what version to use, it defaults to version 1, and
Yeah.
Fedora has the most recent btrfs, and if it sees that, it automatically just doesn't load the or doesn't mount the partition.
Wow.
And so I many times I had to go into the live USB, rechange the FS tab,
That's
and
crazy.
freaking get it back. But then I realized I changed it to version 2. I think it's space underscore cache. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called, what the option's called. But I set it to version 2 and then it worked.
Okay.
But that was just a crazy random issue that I should have known to do because I didn't read the documentation. So yeah, after doing the permissions, everything seemed to work. And also Horizon Zero Dawn now works with DLSS after doing that. So
cool.
I'm thinking something with the permissions, it wasn't working before because I never could get that to work. Not a single time before. And after doing this, works first time.
That's awesome. I still
Yeah.
have not tested DLSS on.
It's so good because you get so much better frame rate.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I wanted to try it on Baldur's Gate 3. I never did get around to testing that.
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3, I play it so casually, and they have so many frequent updates that like I have to restart my character, and so that's why I'm just like, I'll just wait till the game's finished.
Yeah. Right.
It.
Totally get that.
But yeah, I need to install it again and try, if nothing else, just to try that.
Yeah, it's such an easy, little load option or start option for Steam that you can just do it quick. Let's see here. Oh yeah, and oh yes, and Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah,
that
right.
now works fine. You can go into the start. I think maybe that was like a Proton fix because it seemed to happen on my other install, my previous install, because I did install this game and it did work before that. So I think that was a Proton fix.
Could be
with that game, but it definitely works now.
There's a lot of changes like that with Proton going on right now.
Yep, and I'm just using experimental. So
yeah.
So, and another weird thing I had was the Steam Flatpak. If you try to click on the icon, it won't load. It'll load. It'll be in the processes, but nothing will happen. So you have to kill the process, and then you have to actually start it via the command line using the flatpak run com.valvesoftware.Steam.
Right.
And then it works fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And that only started to happen after I made Nvidia the only GPU that my laptop will use. If I tried to use the Intel or switching graphics between Intel and that, it would start up by the icon, but as soon as I switched it just to Nvidia, it won't load. I have no idea what that's about, but it's still not loading right now. I can click on it and it won't pop up. The screen won't pop up to actually play your games. So yeah, that was another issue I still am having, but it works. I can still play my games. I could just have to do it by the command line, or I can write a script or whatever. And the last thing was Wayland. Definitely a no-go for my games. I none of them will start. All of them just crash immediately if I try to do Wayland.
I'm using Xorg. I actually have not. I didn't think about it. I didn't test that on 36, but yeah, I would. I think
Nobara defaults to Xorg, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
But you can still choose it on the login screen.
Okay. Yeah.
If you want to, and I know that in the past, every time I've tried it, some native Linux stuff, so like Counter-Strike or something like that, may work.
Right.
Stanley Parable may have worked.
Right.
But yeah, anything.
Even Linux native games wouldn't work with it. It was just like Valheim, nothing. It wouldn't even start.
Yeah, and I think that even that exception to Linux native games is probably only Linux native games that are things like like some games are just like coincidentally Linux native because of they used Unity or something.
Right. Yeah, that's in Valheim. That's the same.
Right. Exactly. But like Valve is like actively trying to make source engine games like run better on Linux or run well on Linux, and so I think that's why
Mhm.
sometimes you get good luck
Mhm.
with that. Like I think I ran that. Like Lost Coast thing back when we did the first Fedora with Wayland, and it got a decent
Okay,
FPS
that's
score.
cool.
But
Yeah.
but it still was higher. Even still, it was higher on X than it was
Right.
on Wayland.
Right. Well, the thing with Wayland versus X is X basically is like setting your permissions to 777, like
Yeah,
full
yeah,
permissions for everybody. You can like every window has access to everything.
yeah.
And Wayland is more of like a more secure where each window has its own set of permissions, and that's the real reason why we're having so many problems
Hmm.
getting these games to work with the old games that aren't developed for Wayland.
Yeah.
So they have to be specifically developed for Wayland to really get the performance gains out of
Right,
it.
right.
Once we start seeing that, I think we're going to see a
I
huge
mean,
performance,
honestly, the key is
improvement.
Proton. If
Yeah,
if Proton solves the problem, then nobody will care anymore. We'll just run everything in
right.
Proton and be happy.
Yep. I feel like that's where it's going to go for Linux gaming. I
Yeah,
really do.
yeah, that really is true. Yeah,
So, anyway.
and
Yeah, so that was my whole experience. So, that was my spiel.
I think we do need. I mean, like I'm rooting for that to be the case eventually. That we all switch to Wayland.
Oh yeah, definitely 100%.
Yeah. So that's about a wrap. I mean, I don't know what else to say about Fedora 36. It's so similar to 35, and we just talked about 35 last
Yeah.
episode. So I
It
feel like
was just so much under the hood stuff. That's the thing. It's just like other than GNOME 42, which didn't really change a whole lot.
yeah.
Well, I can say one thing that I did notice is that if you do the new appearance thing in GNOME, and you
Mm-hmm.
set it to dark mode,
Yeah.
some applications don't go dark.
Yep.
So you have to go to GNOME tweaks. Actually, you have to install GNOME tweaks,
Yep.
and you have to go to appearance, and then legacy applications you have to set to Adwaita dark or Adwadia or however.
I always say Adwaita. Adwaita.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever said it out loud. Adwaita. Adwaita. Yeah, I have an example of that on screen right now. You see the window behind my OBS window is dark mode, whereas OBS is still light mode.
Now, if you go into GNOME tweaks, you go to applications or appearance. Appearance.
I don't
legacy
think I
applications.
have tweaks installed yet.
Well, if you do that, set that to Adwaita dark, and I guarantee it'll be dark.
Yeah,
Because I can't stand that. I can't stand when applications aren't all dark. It just bothers me.
I don't like it. I noticed it, but it hasn't bugged me enough to change it yet. But I did notice it.
Well, I just found that out like just poking around trying to change the theme of GNOME in general, and I'm like, oh, hey, look at that! I didn't even notice that before.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely a tip.
So, in addition to trying to figure out some way of automating our post configuration process, I think that's kind of how we should think about it.
Yep.
We're also considering the next episode. You had a really good idea for the next episode, and I'm really excited about it. How would you word it? Text-based RPGs? Because I know that you're looking into wanting to learn about Python and doing that whole project. So next week, what if we bring some games to the show and review them that are like text-based?
Oh, okay.
I think they call them MUDs. Isn't that what they call a MUD?
Okay. I'm
looking
not
up
sure
the
yet.
word to make sure.
I never.
I looked up MUD and it just pulled up the jeans brand. I thought they were called MUDs. Is that not what they're called?
I don't know, but I never
RPG.
played a fully text-based game ever. So like I really, other than what I played around with what you suggested.
So MUD is specific to a multi-user dungeon.
Oh, interesting.
So these are those text-based. So I remember seeing. This was way before our time of playing games, but I remember seeing them, and they were they're text-based, but I didn't realize you could play with other people. So in a way, MUDs were like the first RPGs or the first MMOs, right? Like if
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
How would
Wow.
multiple people inhabit a text-based RPG? Like
Okay, so basically just picture the chat in WoW, but that's your whole screen. Can you imagine that? It's like, like you would never be able to read anything. Like, oh crap, I
Yeah.
missed the quest. Gotta scroll up.
So I've never played them myself.
Yeah, me neither. I'm just
Actually,
assuming.
when you were in Anderson, we talked about that one game that we never ended up playing.
Right.
It should be near me somewhere. I don't see it. But that like Alice is missing or whatever it was called.
Yeah. It was literally like a text, like
Yeah.
literal text, like text messaging.
Yeah. So I bet it's something like that, but
Betcha, yeah.
everybody's sharing a server somehow. I've seen people play games like that over Discord. Like I joined a Discord server where I was going to play Pathfinder with a group of people. And
Okay.
I imagine the way it would have worked. We didn't actually play it. The group fell through. But I imagine the way it would have worked was the dungeon master would have kind of typed out a paragraph explaining a scenario, and then each player would type what spell they want to cast, and they'd have to roll some kind of dice, and then based on that result, they would, the DM would have to dictate what. So basically, if you're writing a Python game to do the same thing, you basically would be having to script out the DM's portion.
Right.
But what if you... Okay, we need to talk about this on that episode, but I just had an idea. What if you, instead of scripting out everything the DM could do, what if... This probably already exists, this idea I'm about to describe. What if you just built a Python application that would basically facilitate these games? Someone sits in the DM chair, and then people sit in the player's chair, and all your scripting is the ability to use all the tools to use to tell the story, but you would still give the story in the hands of whoever's sitting in the DM chair,
Right.
Yeah. We need to look into making this. If
Yeah,
it has to exist. It has to exist though. It has to exist.
Oh, almost every idea I've ever had in my entire life already exists. So this definitely exists.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a good episode, and next week
this is a long one.
Next week we'll review some text-based RPGs.
Yeah, definitely.
There's some cool ones on Steam. I think we can find some.
Oh, they actually have some on Steam, really.
Well,
there's definitely look into that.
So
I never really looked.
Yeah, there are, and there's some like Android app ones that you can get. But
I've seen those. I haven't played them, but I've seen them.
The ones I'm thinking about on Steam are a little different, so there might be some caveats. But like, I know that there's like ones where it's like a fake computer or a fake cell phone, and you're like a fake hacker, and you're hacking through this person's text messages and stuff, but you're also learning a story as you're doing it. Like,
right, yeah. Okay.
So there's stuff like that. There's some really creative ways to kind of do this type of game.
That's crazy though.
All right, well, we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe. If you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, you're probably already subscribed, but please subscribe if you're not. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you're more than likely not subscribed, and we really appreciate it if you would. The audio thing kind of just works. We don't really have to focus on it, but the YouTube thing's really hard. So we really appreciate it if you would subscribe, like, and comment, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
See ya.